Hi everyone, my name is Julia Mars and I am a college student at Cal State University Fullerton and I am interning with College Web Media. Our interviews are for college students wanting to hear real-world stories from people who have found success after graduation. Today, I had the pleasure of interviewing Jaewon Jung. I hope you enjoy. So first, do you have any social media handles I can share with our audience?
Yeah, so it's going to be the same for my Instagram and Twitter. It's my name, J1, and then news. And then my Facebook page, unfortunately, doesn't have a username, but I'll drop the URL in the chat box. I don't have it's like managed by my stations, so
Okay.
I can't really do anything, but
Of
let me
course.
share it in the chat.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. So could you start off by telling me a little bit about your education?
Yeah, so I went to Cal State Fullerton for my undergrad, and at the time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I just entered college, but I just knew I was interested in like some kind of media work. So I decided to do radio, TV, and film, and it was mostly like a um, film basis, I guess, because most of the classes I took were film related and got super into it. I really liked writing, especially screenwriting. Um, but after I graduated, it was just so hard to find a job, and the entertainment industry in particular is just so competitive. So I decided to go to grad school because I wasn't sure again what I wanted to do. Um, and I went in for communications, but I started working uh, so I went to grad school at USC, and I started working at USC's media center, where they have like radio and TV there. And I started working as a journalist there. And I just had so much fun just like talking with people and learning about their stories. And at a place like USC with so much controversy, it was just such an honor to be a part of it, to be a part of these big stories that are becoming national stories. So yeah, that's when I got super into it. And yeah, and that's how I came about today.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's like the same with me when I first got into communications. I had no idea what I kind of wanted to do, but it just kind of stumbled into it. But yeah, it's definitely a competitive market here on Southern California for sure.
For sure.
And then I think Rudy was telling me that you went from your master's program to Las Vegas for a job. Could you talk a little bit about that position?
Yeah, so that job just came very unexpectedly. And, my whole goal last year was to work at a station, but it was just hard with the pandemic. I didn't have a reel together. And um, yeah, I was just stuck, and I just decided, I worked in communications, so let's look for some communications positions. And there was an opportunity in Vegas, and I worked there for a couple months. I met lots of great friends, but it was just not a right fit for me. So yeah, I came
And
out of it.
what was the position you were doing there?
So I was a communications director for a nonprofit. Um, I worked at two different nonprofits, uh, but it was owned by the same person. One of them was more like political, and then the other one was more community based. So it was just more about like kind of advocating for the Asian Pacific Islander community, which in Vegas is growing, but it's not as big as Southern California. So for them, it was all about just, I guess, giving them a voice and yeah, just advocating for them.
Yeah, it's great that you kind of had that like experience and working with a nonprofit. I'm sure it's just a more rewarding work.
Yeah, it was definitely like a stepping stone, I guess, because I got to. It was a lot of storytelling too. So yeah, it was a rewarding experience.
Oh, that's awesome. And then from there, how did you get to KEZI?
So I had been looking for stations for a while, but a lot of stations too, they lost a lot of their positions during the pandemic because there were no sports during the pandemic. A lot of the sports journalists ended up doing news because there was no sports going on. So because of that, that meant less jobs for people who just graduated looking for journalism jobs. Um, there just came a point where I was like, you know what, like I'm a lot older than some of these kids now. So I feel like if I don't take the risk now, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life, especially because this is what I've been wanting to do for a while. So I just took a risk and I applied to a bunch of stations. Um, I've been to Oregon before in the past and I really liked it. So I thought Eugene would be a great place to start out. So I just got a great opportunity.
That's great. How do you think that your mentors played a role in your success? Or did you have like one particular mentor that really helped you get to where you are now?
I think I had a few different mentors. First of all, I'll say at USC, the professors there were incredible. Just the fact that they know the industry so well. So they really train you well, like in terms of being a journalist in this day and age, because it's so different from what it looked like 10 or 20 years ago with one person having to do everything. Like I shoot, edit, report, interview, I do everything. So the fact that they teach you that there, like how to write in a certain way, journalists write in a certain way, how to edit your stuff, how to do camera work, how to frame things, just the fact that they were able to teach you to be a multiplayer, that really played a huge role. And then actually in Vegas, I was really lucky because one of my mentors there, she was a news reporter for a really long time, for like 15 years. Uh, but then she came out of the industry and now she's doing media consulting, and she was working with the nonprofit that I was working at, and somehow I got connected with her and I always consulted her for advice. She looked over my contract before I signed it, and she was really a huge help because she just knew the ins and outs of the industry so well.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes when you have that like inside, inside way in or a foot in the door, it definitely is helpful. But I can see how kind of being like a one-man show is very valuable in the marketplace today. I mean, everyone, has a phone in their hand by the time they're born. So everyone's very like media savvy. So being able to edit and do all of that is definitely an important job.
Yeah.
What would you say, like, for you makes a story difficult to cover?
Um, a story difficult to cover.
Is there any type of like, or like a genre of stories that are more difficult for you to cover than others?
I think rather than genre, it just depends on, because with news, it's all about time. You're trying to get in your story by a deadline, and it's all about getting it in or not. And it's like even if you don't get your story in, the show still has to go on. So if you want to get your story in and your show in, then you just have to keep trying and kind of hustle throughout the day. So rather than a particular genre being hard, I think the hardest stories are just when people are not willing to talk to you. So if there's some kind of scandal going on and they know that if they talk, it's going to cause a lot of controversy. If I were to give you one in particular, this one actually gained a lot of controversy recently, like maybe 1 or 2 months ago. So I live in Eugene, but the city right next door is called Springfield. And this area is kind of known as the Eugene and Springfield area. And the police department in Springfield has had so many issues in terms of how people perceive them, and just kind of like inner scandals. And recently there was another police officer who was involved in a sex scandal. And that story was just so difficult because every time I try to talk to the police department, like, did you know this sergeant who allegedly uh, did this kind of stuff? And they won't talk to you. You'll reach out to the sergeant. Obviously, he's not going to talk to you. So, yeah, I think just the hardest stories are when people don't talk to you. When people are willing to talk to you, um, that's when the day goes kind of smooth. Uh, And, of course, tragic situations are always the hardest. And having to talk with the family and being like, hey, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now, but if we can help you at all, if we can raise awareness about a certain issue, or if we can, you know, maybe raise funds for a campaign for memorial services or something, we're here as an option. But yeah, it's always hard. It's part of the job is having to, knock on doors and saying, did you know the person who just died? Those are always tough. And when it involves minors, it's even tougher. Tonight, family and friends are mourning the loss of a Myrtle Point woman killed in a dog attack. Thanks for staying up with us. I'm Jaewon Jung. She's the woman you see next to me. Loved ones say she was a mother of 2 girls. The incident happened Friday morning on the 1700 block of Spruce Street. This is where LaBelle was living with her girls. A neighbor heard screaming and rushed to the scene. She says it got bloody.
Not knowing how bad it was, I just ran directly to her apartment to help her. From there, it was a pretty bad scene. We had another neighbor holding a dog back, pretty big dog, and I just ran past the dog and went straight to Amber. She was unresponsive at that time.
Neighbors say LaBelle was life-flighted to Riverbend Hospital where she went into surgery. She was reportedly put on life support and given 24 hours to live, but she passed away early next morning. Her ex-boyfriend says it wasn't her dog.
Because it wasn't hers. It was not her dog. And so logically you can conclude that she may have been doing a favor for someone. But it's more than my estimation, and I would be willing to lay this down as law. There is no way, even if she was watching it for someone, that she would have voluntarily and knowingly allowed a vicious dog, violent dog, into her space, not only with the kids there, but around herself.
Neighbors say the dog is a gray pit bull. Police say that this was not a random attack and the dog was known to LaBelle.
Yeah, I could definitely imagine just like the being an emotional or, definitely you don't have a story if no one's talking to you. So that could be challenging.
Yeah,
so what are some of the major differences between like on-field reporting and when you're producing or anchoring, and which do you prefer to do?
So I wouldn't like to say I have a preference because right now I really like having the mix of both. And I was telling people, like if you report for 5 days straight, it is so draining on your body because you're just hustling throughout the entire day. I would say reporting is the hardest job. Doing MMJing or multimedia journalism is definitely the hardest job because you're carrying around heavy camera equipment. You're driving around the whole town trying to talk with people. Then you have to get back to the station, edit all of your stuff and make sure it's in on time. So definitely reporting is harder, but I really do like the mix of doing anchoring and producing on the weekends and then reporting during the day. I do like that mix.
Okay, so when you're reporting, you're pretty much by yourself. It's like the one-woman show.
Pretty much. Sometimes they put me with a photog if I'm doing live shots or something, but it's very occasional. And then in terms of, since I'm the weekend anchor and producer, I pretty much have to be the leader in the newsroom on the weekends because everybody has weekends off. So even during the weekends, I have to manage the reporters, make sure they're getting their stuff in. And then I have to talk with other stations to put some stuff in my shows because on the weekends, there's just not as many stories. So I have to fill some stuff from like Portland or Medford or somewhere in other parts of Oregon. Obviously, we want to keep it Eugene and Springfield and our area based, but when there's just not enough stories, I have to use some of our partners and communicate with them to find stories. And yeah, producing is a different kind of challenging, I think, especially on the weekend because you just have to fill your show. So I'm always just on every Facebook group I can find in the area to see what's going on. And, I'm not a huge fan of social media. I'm definitely not as savvy as some of the kids these days, but it's just part of the job that you have to be involved in it.
Yeah, it's definitely just becoming a part of our everyday culture. So it's,
Part of our
yeah,
life.
you either hop on or, you're left out.
When Julia and Jaewon returned, Julia asked Jaewon, what advice would she give to college students who want to be a reporter like she is? This interview is brought to you by College Web Mentor.
Whether you're deciding on a major, wondering how to network effectively, or planning your career, College Web Mentor offers a range of tools and services to help you succeed.
So what are some of your goals for the future?
My goals for the future, I think starting this job, I kind of like, it feels like a calling, like I was meant to do this. And it's kind of like when you found the one you're going to be with for the rest of your life. That's how I felt like when I got this job, is like, wow, like I know this job is very demanding and it's difficult, but something about it, I was like, you know what, this job is like the perfect fit for me. Like I can't imagine myself doing anything else. So right now my job is to just go to a bigger market. I do want to stay in local news just because I think when it gets to the network level, it just gets a little too chaotic. But if I could work in a big city, I think Seattle would be really cool. I think Boston would be cool. I'm really open to where I'm going. I don't have anything holding me back. So yeah, I think that's the goal from here, is just to go to a relatively big city and pursue the dream.
That's definitely exciting that you've you found your passion, you're doing what you love. So that's great. Is there any courses that prepared you for working at the station when you were in college, or particularly prepared you?
Honestly, I'm gonna say no for this one, just because my major wasn't in journalism. So the courses I took weren't really that helpful in terms of journalism. But I think anyone can be a journalist if they're willing to talk to people, if they're willing to learn quickly, if they're willing to do everything. I think these days, literally anybody can be a journalist, but it's just about being able to talk to people and being willing to learn every day. And especially at a small market, you're going to get days where it just sucks and your story doesn't turn out the way you want it, but you have to take criticism well, and you have to just grow from that.
Awesome. And how did you said you weren't really prepared for it, but how did you mentally prepare for your first day of working at the station? I'm sure that was just a lot of excitement or anxiety, maybe.
I was actually really excited. I think for me, volunteering at USC's Media Center, that really prepared me. So that wasn't really a course, right? But I got to do the work there when I was there. So now just putting it into action at the station, I kind of knew what I was getting into, but because our station has 3 shows a day, that's way different. Or my shift has 3 shows a day. Our day has way many more shows than that because we have morning and evening too. But our shift has 3 shows that we have to do per day. But at USC, it would just be, 1 show a day and that's it. So you kind of have the whole day to prepare for just one story when I was in college. But now it's like, you have to do 3 different angles. You have to make sure you talk with officials, but then also talk with just real people on the street. So yeah, I think my first day, I just went into it with a very open mind, and I just thought, I'm just going to do everything they ask me to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really great advice. I feel like it's the same thing, but just a lot more pressure. You're doing it a lot more. Yeah. So it was a difference, but you were prepared for it, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, what advice would you give to college students that would like to be in a reporting position?
Advice, I would say, if you know that this is what you want to do, then just be willing to do everything. Be willing to produce as well. Be willing to talk with people that you don't think you're going to talk to. Watch a lot of local news from other stations. I know these days people post it on YouTube. And I think another really great advice is, depending on which city you want to end up, look at how they're operating and go to a starter market where they're kind of doing similar things. So if you want to be an active live shot reporter and you want to work in a big city like New York or Chicago, you want to start off at a station where they're going to make you go live a lot. But if you're going to a city where there's not as much crime and it's more feature stories and lifestyle, that kind of thing, then maybe you want to start off at a smaller market like that first. So try to see what you like, venture out and everything. And yeah, biggest thing is you have to be willing to talk with people. You have to be okay with just grabbing people on the street and saying, hey, can I speak with you? And it's so awkward in the beginning, but it's something that comes with the job. And yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is being able to talk with people.
Was that hard for you in the beginning, and it was just kind of like breaking through and just more practice?
Hard at the beginning. For some people it comes so naturally, but I think I'm more of an introverted person, so it's not easy sometimes to just like grab people on the street like randomly out of nowhere, But these days I'm just like, you know what? They'll probably never see me again. It's okay. I'll just ask them.
Yeah, I had to tell yourself stuff like that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And Rudy and I are going to be editing everything. And then once it's prepared, we can send you out the link to it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Of course.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye-bye.